Now, picture this, y'all. You're standing smack dab in the middle of an old forest where the trees been standing longer than folks can reckon. The ground under your boots? It's hiding a story. Whole towns drowned beneath them lakes, their ghosts still wandering in the deep. Then, just as the wind kicks up, carrying a mournful howl, you feel it. A pair of eyes watching. Something lurking out there in the dark. Here in the land between the lakes, shadows ain't just shadows and the past don't stay buried. This ain't no regular patch of woods, no sir. It's a place where history's heavy, hauntings real, and something downright beastly prowls the night. Y'all ready for this? If you love hearing tales about haunted woods, ghost towns, and critters that'll make the hair on your neck stand up, welcome on in to Kentucky Melody. We're all about digging up the spooky and mysterious stories from the hills and hollers of Kentucky and beyond. Don't forget to like, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell, 'cause you ain't gonna want to miss the next tale waiting in the shadows. Now, let's get into the secrets of the land between the lakes. Tucked away in the heart of western Kentucky and northern Tennessee lies a land full of secrets, where history runs deep, tragedy lingers, and stories colder than a winter's night whisper through the trees. They call it the land between the lakes, but folks round here know it's more than just a patch of forest and water. Sure, it's got its rolling hills, thick woods, and peaceful shores, but don't let its beauty fool you. Beneath that calm, there's a darkness, a past tangled with sorrow, ghostly sights that'll send shivers down your spine, and the chilling tale of the beast that prowls these parts. This here's the story of a place where the lines between history and legend blur, leaving behind one of the most mysterious stretches of land in all America. Way back, long before settlers came poking round these parts, the stretch of land now called the land between the lakes was home to the Chickasaw and Cherokee tribes. To them, this weren't just some woods and rivers to cut through or live off of. It was something sacred, something alive with power. The rivers ran like veins through the land, bringing life, while the thick forests stood tall like guardians keeping watch. The people believed this place wasn't just home to animals and trees. It was full of spirits strong and mysterious watching over the land. Back in the time of the Mississippian culture, round 800 to 1600 CE, the folks living here left their mark in ways that still make folks scratch their heads in wonder. They built ceremonial mounds, big old earthworks that weren't just piles of dirt, but sacred places tied to their beliefs and rituals. These people had themselves a mighty impressive trade network, too, stretching far and wide, trading goods like shells, stones, and pottery with other communities. But it ain't just the mounds and trade that tell their story. It's the legends they pass down. Archaeologists have dug up clues that show they believed in something deeper, something wild and spiritual. They talked about shapeshifters and animal spirits, beings that could blur the line between man and beast. Sounds a lot like the stories we hear today about the beast of the land between the lakes, don't it? Their tales weren't just for spooking folks. They were meant to teach a lesson. These stories warned people to respect the land and the powers that lived in it. Step out of line, take too much, or act like you own the place and you might just end up facing one of them malevolent spirits out in the dark woods. It was their way of keeping balance, reminding folks that the land wasn't theirs to take. It was something they shared with forces bigger and older than any human could understand. There's one old tale from them times that still sends a chill down folks' spines. It spoke of something not quite man, not quite beast, but something caught in between. A shadowy figure, they said, that prowled the deepest parts of the woods. It weren't just wandering aimlessly, neither. It was guarding something. Sacred spaces, they called them, places that held power and meaning to the people who lived there. If anyone dared to step where they shouldn't, taking what wasn't theirs or disrespecting the land, this creature would punish them in ways best not imagined. Some say it was a spirit bound to the earth, protecting it from harm. Others reckon it was a warning, something folks dreamed up to keep folks in line. But here's the thing. When you hear stories about the beast of the land between the lakes today, it makes you wonder. Could them ancient whispers have been the first inkling of what folks now call the beast? Maybe it's the same creature, older than memory, still keeping watch over these woods. Back in the late 1700s, when European settlers started making their way into these parts, they set their sights on the rich valleys nestled between the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. It didn't take long for him to start clearing forests and plowing fields, building farms and setting up little communities. The land was fertile, the rivers ran steady, and it seemed like the perfect place to carve out a living. But what seemed like an opportunity for the settlers was a heavy blow to the people who'd been here long before. The Native American tribes, like the Chickasaw and Cherokee, were forced to move further west, pushed off the land they'd called home for generations. They didn't just leave their homes behind, they left sacred spaces, places tied to their stories, their spirits, and their way of life. And with those spaces, they left something else, warnings. The old stories told of dark secrets hiding in the land, something that wasn't meant to be disturbed. The settlers, though, didn't pay much mind to tales of spirits or shadowy creatures. They were too busy clearing the trees and turning the earth. But as the years went on, strange things started happening in them woods. Things that made folks wonder if maybe those warnings weren't just idle talk after all. By the time the mid-1800s rolled round, the stretch of land folks called Between the Rivers was dotted with small farming communities. Dozens of them popped up, with hardy settlers scratching out a living on the fertile soil. These were tough folks, no doubt about it, but life out there wasn't easy. The land demanded hard work, and the isolation brought its own kind of loneliness. But it wasn't just the back-breaking work or the quiet nights that weighed on these settlers. There was something else. It started slow, like a whisper carried on the wind. Folks began swapping stories of strange goings-on. They'd hear sounds in the dead of night, low growls or eerie cries coming from the woods. Some claimed to see shadows moving where no man should have been, figures that didn't quite look human. At first, they chalked it up to wild animals, maybe a bear or a pack of wolves prowling nearby. But as the stories grew, so did the unease. Some settlers started to whisper about something darker, something tied to the land itself. They said the spirits of the old tribes were restless, angered by the clearing of the forests and the tilling of sacred ground. Others reckoned it was something older, something not of this world protecting the land from those who dared to disturb it. Whatever it was, it made the nights longer, the woods deeper, and the shadows a whole lot darker for those living between the rivers. The 20th century rolled in, and with it came changes that shook the land to its roots. In the 1930s and 40s, the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA for short, set its sights on modernizing this part of the country. Their plan was bold, no doubt about it. Dam up the Tennessee River to control flooding, generate electricity, and bring a new kind of prosperity to the region. By 1944, their vision became reality, and the waters of what they called Kentucky Lake started to rise. But progress came at a mighty high cost. The damming of the river created what was, at the time, the largest man-made lake in the whole United States. To make way for them waters, entire towns had to be cleared out. Folks who'd lived on the land for generations were forced to pack up and leave. Farms that had fed families for decades, schoolhouses that had taught generations of kids, and churches where folks had prayed their whole lives. All of it was swallowed up by the rising lake. Even the cemeteries weren't spared. Crews worked to move the graves, but stories still linger about those they missed, the ones left behind to rest beneath the water. The TVA called it progress, but for the people who lost their homes, their land, and their heritage, it was heartbreak. Some say the land itself mourned, and the spirits tied to it stirred. Maybe that's why folks still talk about strange things happening round the shores of Kentucky Lake, as if the past refuses to stay buried under all that water. Come the 1960s, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers decided to follow in the TVA's footsteps, this time damming up the Cumberland River to create Lake Barkley. It was another big push for progress, they said. More flood control, more power, and more opportunity for the region. But, just like with Kentucky Lake, that so-called progress came at a price that cut deep. When the waters started rising, they forced thousands of folks out of their homes, people who'd lived on that land for generations. Whole communities disappeared under the waves. Families left behind farms, schools, and churches, the places where their lives had been built. Cemeteries had to be moved again. But here's the thing. Rumors still swirl that not every grave was accounted for. They say there's graves left forgotten, now sitting at the bottom of Lake Barkley. And where there's forgotten graves, there's restless spirits, or so the stories go. Folks claim to see ghostly figures walking the shores of the lake, as if searching for the homes they lost. Others tell of strange sounds echoing through the woods at night, whispers and wails that'll make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Whether it's the spirits of those who weren't laid to rest proper or something else entirely, the waters of Lake Barkley seem to hold more than just history. They hold a lingering sadness and maybe even something darker. In 1963, the government took things a step further and declared the whole area the Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area. They called it Progress, a way to turn the land into a place for folks to enjoy nature, hike the trails, and fish the waters. But for the over 800 families still calling that land home, it was a heartbreaking blow. They were forced off their farms, out of their homes, leaving behind lives they'd built over generations. Where there'd once been small towns and tight-knit communities, there was now a park run by the federal government. For them, families, the lakes didn't just mean power and recreation. They became symbols of loss and betrayal. Folks packed up what they could carry and left their land behind, but the memories stayed, tangled up with the sorrow of what had been taken. Some of them swore the land didn't forget either. Stories started circulating not long after. People claimed to hear ghostly cries echoing through the woods at night, as if the displaced were still mourning what they'd lost. Others said they'd seen spectral figures wandering near the water's edge, blurry and faint like the past itself, rising up to remind folks of what once was. For those who lived it, the land between the lakes might be a park today, but it'll always be a place heavy with the weight of what was left behind. The hauntings in the land between the lakes are as deep and varied as the land's history itself. One of the most talked about tales centers on the town of Birmingham, a bustling little community in its day, now sitting silent and submerged beneath the waters of Kentucky Lake. When the water levels dip low enough, the ghosts of what once was start peeking through, old streets and building foundations showing themselves, along with the eerie stories that never really left. Down at Birmingham Point, when the waters of Kentucky Lake pull back enough to show the old streets, folks say the ghosts of the past come right along with them. Visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures walking those exposed roads like echoes of the people who once called the town home. These ghostly figures don't linger long. They're there one moment and gone the next, disappearing into thin air as if the lake itself swallows them back up. But even after they're gone, folks swear they can still hear something, the faint sound of footsteps squelching in the mud, as if the spirits are still taking their final walk through the town they lost. Out on Kentucky Lake, when the night settles in and the waters turn black as coal, fishermen tell of seeing something mighty peculiar, strange, glowing lights deep beneath the surface. They say it looks like lanterns flickering just like the ones folks used to carry in the old days. Some swear it's the lights of the homes that once stood there, still burning as if the people never really left. The lights don't follow no rhyme or reason, bobbing and drifting in the depths like they've got a mind of their own. Ain't no scientific explaining it, and those who've seen it reckon it's the spirits of the town, refusing to let the darkness take 'em completely. When the night gets quiet out by Kentucky Lake, with nothing but the rustle of the trees and the lapping of the water, some folks say you can hear something else, a sound that don't belong. Campers have whispered about hearing the soft toll of church bells, faint but clear, drifting through the darkness. It don't matter that Birmingham's church is long gone, swallowed up by the lake. Locals believe it's still there in some way, calling out from beneath the water. They say it's a solemn reminder of the town that time buried, a mournful echo of a congregation that never truly left. And it ain't just Birmingham. Across LBL, hikers speak of whispers in the woods, soft and low, as if the trees themselves are trying to tell you something. Others say they've seen shadowy figures moving just out of sight, darting between the trees faster than any human could. Some reckon it's the spirits of those forced to leave their homes, wandering in sorrow. Others think it might be something older, something tied to the land itself, watching and waiting in the dark. Whatever it is, one thing's for sure. The land between the lakes ain't just rich in history. It's a place where the past refuses to stay buried. Now, the most infamous tale to come out of the land between the lakes is the one that'll make your skin crawl, the story of the Beast. Folks say it's something not quite man and not quite wolf, but something twisted right in between. Descriptions vary, but most agree on a few terrifying details. It's said to stand over 7 feet tall, towering over any man brave or foolish enough to cross its path. Its eyes glow like embers in the dark, and its claws are sharp enough to tear through flesh and bark alike. But what chills folks most is the way it moves, silent as a shadow, slipping through the woods without so much as a snap twig to give it away. It's a predator through and through, and out here in the dense forests of LBL, it reigns supreme. The most bone-chilling tale out of the land between the lakes has to be the story of the family camping there back in the 1980s. Legend has it, they'd parked their camper deep in the woods looking for a peaceful getaway. What they found instead was something out of a nightmare. When folks came upon the scene later, the camper was torn to shreds. Great claw marks gouged right into the metal, like something with unimaginable strength had ripped through it. The parents were found outside, their bodies mutilated in ways no animal attack could explain. The boy, just a child, was discovered high up in a tree, like something had dragged him up there and left him as a warning. And the little girl, her body was never found, vanishing without a trace. Around the scene, investigators reportedly found massive tracks, like a wolf's, but far too big to belong to any ordinary creature. To this day, there's no official explanation for what happened that night, but locals know one thing for sure. The Beast of LBL ain't just a story for scaring folks. It's something real, and it's something deadly. When the sun dips below the trees and the land between the lakes is swallowed by darkness, the night comes alive with sounds that'll make your blood run cold. Visitors have long talked about hearing howls out there in the deep woods, low, guttural, and unnatural. These ain't no regular coyote yips or wolf calls. They're deeper, heavier, like something big and wild letting the world know it's out there. The kind of sound that rattles your chest and makes you freeze in your tracks. Some say it's the beast, calling out into the night, claiming its territory. Others reckon it's something older, something tied to the land itself, warning folks to stay far away. Whatever it is, it ain't nothing that belongs to any animal we know, and it's something you don't ever want to hear too close. These days, the land between the lakes is a paradise for outdoor lovers, drawing folks from far and wide to hike its trails, cast a line in its waters, or camp beneath its towering trees. But for all its natural beauty and recreation, LBL's dark side hasn't faded. It's still a hotspot for thrill seekers, ghost hunters, and cryptid chasers looking to unravel its eerie secrets. Local guides have leaned into the area's haunted reputation, offering tours that'll take you to the spookiest corners of LBL. They lead brave visitors to the spots where folks have reported hauntings, like Birmingham Point and the submerged towns, and spin tales of ghostly apparitions and spectral sounds. It's enough to make the hair on your neck stand up, even in broad daylight. Then there's the beast, the big draw for those who believe in what prowls just beyond the light of the campfire. Cryptid enthusiasts have turned LBL into a must-visit location, organizing expeditions to track down signs of the half-man, half-wolf terror that's said to roam the woods. They comb through the trees, looking for prints, claw marks, or even a glimpse of those glowing eyes. For all its beauty and adventure, the land between the lakes carries a weight, a lingering mystery that refuses to be ignored. The hauntings and the legend of the beast serve as stark reminders of the region's layered past, a history marked by human resilience and a connection to the unknown that runs deeper than the lakes themselves. It's a place where the veil between the seen and the unseen feels just a little thinner, leaving visitors to wonder what might still be out there, watching from the shadows. The land between the lakes is more than just a stretch of wilderness. It's a place where history and legend walk hand in hand, their echoes woven into the fabric of the land itself. Here, the past doesn't rest easy. It lingers, just out of sight, beneath the surface of the present. From the sacred lands once cherished by Native American tribes, to the ghost towns now buried under the lake's waters, to the bone-chilling tales of the beast that prowls the forests, LBL is a tapestry threaded with beauty, loss, and something darker. For those who venture here, it's a chance to connect with nature in its purest form, majestic, untamed, and alive. But this land don't come without its warnings. The whispers of the past seem to hang heavy in the air, and every shadow, every sound, feels like it's hiding something just beyond your reach. So tread carefully and keep your eyes open. Out here in these woods, you might not be alone. Now it's your turn to tell us what you think about the mysteries of the land between the lakes. Do you believe in the hauntings, the ghostly figures walking the submerged streets, the tolling of church bells from a town lost beneath the water, or the phantom lights that flicker deep in the lake? Have you ever experienced something strange in the woods yourself? And what about the beast? Could it be a creature of flesh and blood hiding out in the dense forests, or is it something more supernatural, a guardian of the land, as some legends suggest? Do you think these stories are just local folklore, or could there be truth buried in the shadows of LBL? We'd love to hear your thoughts, theories, or even your own spooky encounters if you've been brave enough to visit. Drop a comment below and join the conversation. We're all ears, but let's hope the beast isn't listening too. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the eerie and mysterious land between the lakes. If you enjoyed this tale of hauntings, ghost towns, and the beast, make sure to give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next story waiting in the shadows. Here at Kentucky Melody, we're all about uncovering the spooky, the strange, and the downright unexplainable, so stick with us, y'all. Now, before y'all go wandering off into the woods or settling down by the lake, remember this. If you hear something howling in the night, it might not just be the wind. And if a ghostly light catches your eye, well, maybe just keep walking and don't look back. But hey, if you do meet the beast, give him our regards and maybe a Snickers bar. I hear he's less cranky when he's not hungry. Stay safe, stay curious, and as always, keep an eye on the shadows. They might just be watching back. See y'all next time if the ghosts don't get you first.